Jason Williams, District Attorney. How you doing, Jason?
Good morning. How are you
I'm
today?
okay. How's the shoulder?
A little bit better every day, but far from 50%.
Got to push yourself through rehab, man. You know that. I'm telling you that friend to friend. You got to do that. Save that
I'll
pain
be,
medicine for that rehab because you got to do
I'll
it.
be with I'll be with Mike at Turo later on today and tomorrow.
All right, my friend. Let's talk about this horrific murder of the tour guide, 43-year-old Christy Thibodeau. The 15-year-old Kevin Nunez, who is said to be the trigger man, is he going to be tried as an adult, or do
You
you
know,
know?
based on everything we know, that is our intention, based upon the facts, based upon the violent nature of his history. We have not received all the reports. The NOPD is still conducting an investigation. That investigation is going incredibly well. As you know, he was convicted of violent crimes in juvenile court that involved family members. And so, this should not have happened for a number of reasons, but the juvenile system is certainly not set up for the level of violence that this individual has shown and allegedly shown.
Jason, you didn't hear me before we went to the break, but I was saying, you can go back and depending on either your political views or whatever it is that is your frame of reference, you can craft so many different reasons for why this happened. That would all be of little comfort to this lady's family or to her. Let's start with the DA's office. And what kind of relationship do you have with the juvenile justice system in Orleans Juvenile Justice Court? I know you accused them of dereliction of duty. I don't know if there are specific judges. This happened to be Judge Candace Bates Anderson, who has had some issues before. Do you know what the hell's going on over there or not?
Look, I can tell you right now, as I've said before, juvenile court is a black box in terms of the information that can come out. When I was on the city council, we wanted data, we wanted numbers about how money was being spent, and we can never get that information clearly. And we've had the situation where an individual was convicted, sentenced to life, juvenile life. And when the DA's office wasn't present in court, when the victims weren't present in court, when we told the defendant was going to be brought back, he was put in a step-down facility, and we all know he escaped and then went to another state. So what's going on in juvenile court right now, I believe is absurd. I can't imagine that we have a good relationship now after ringing the alarm that I rang over this electronic monitoring debacle. I made it really clear. I disagreed with the judge's sentence of this young man. We convicted him of very serious violent offenses, and the judge chose to release him back into community and not hold him in custody. We believe he should have been held in custody, and if he was in custody, he couldn't have been on the street at 5 o'clock in the morning to kill Miss Thibodeau. And Lord knows, I bet he wishes he was still serving time for the crimes that we convicted him of. But the electronic monitor, I believe, is being misused by juvenile court. It should not be an alternative to incarceration for someone who has proven themselves to be violent. It should only be used for nonviolent offenses. And that's one bucket that we need to unpack. And I think that part is important.
What does the law say about trying juveniles as adults? Minimum age or severity of the crime, is that all at the DA's discretion?
It's at the DA's discretion. Obviously, first degree, second degree murder allegations change all of that. I never wanted to have to convict or charge a young person of a crime that could carry a life sentence. That I don't think anybody would want that. But think about the alternative as the law is set up now. This young man, if convicted in the juvenile system, could only serve up until his 21st birthday for taking the life of someone sitting in their car. And he has already proven to be unwilling to listen to the orders of a juvenile court judge. And the last time we convicted him, they sent him out with an ankle monitor with nobody actually looking or checking where he was and where he was going. So the system is not made for this type of crime and this type of defendant in the juvenile system.
So when it comes to black box, Knowles referred to it as a star chamber. Do you, as a district attorney in your office, do you have access to the records that you need and so forth when it comes to juvenile offenders? Or is the court forthcoming with you so you have everything you need and you can go back and look to see this, that, the other thing? But after you convict, and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong here, it's out of your hands.
That is accurate. Everybody's got a role to play. The NOPD and the LSP, they make arrests when they believe a person's committed a crime. We get that case, we screen it, we bring it to trial, we try that case, we get a conviction. After that conviction, it's handed over to a judge, and the judge decides what that sentence will be, whether that be incarceration, whether that be probation, and so. Yes, we have the information we need in terms of proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt. We have that information that can't be kept from us. But with the creation of whatever sort of monitoring, we shouldn't even call it an electronic monitoring system. We should call it a bracelet, because if it's not being monitored, what good is it that it has GPS tracking? The system they have set up in which they are releasing violent individuals who have been convicted of crimes into electronic monitors. And then no one, not the director of JJIC, which is appointed by the mayor, that's a city agency that's paid for with taxpayer dollars, city taxpayer dollars. The mayor chose the last director, Keyshawn Webster. She chose this director. I don't know what their experience level was. They picked this service provider that does not provide real-time tracking, which to me is utterly absurd. I don't understand. It is bad for the kid, let alone bad for the public. You're telling a kid he can't go this place, he needs to be home by this time, but you also let him know nobody's watching. That's not going to work for my child. It's certainly not going to work for anyone's child, especially in a judicial setting. So it is a black box when it relates to what is happening after conviction, when individuals can be brought back into court without letting victims and survivors know, without letting my office know, and a judge can try to step down their sentence into a halfway house, and they escape from that halfway house. That is absurd. That is wrong. That part of this privacy that surrounds juvenile court, that needs to change.
So if we can go back a second here, and I'm trying to figure out what, and I talked to Pat Connick just now, what's going to change as far as monitoring goes after the legislative session and the law that was passed?
So, and look, there was one one television station, I believe it's DSU, that incorrectly reported ASAP as being the electronic monitoring company for juvenile court. That is absolutely incorrect.
No, if anything, that's who it should be.
ASAP has been the industry leader and the standard bearer for how to do it right. I've worked with them on trying to get some legislation taken up by the city council, and by trying to get the judges of criminal court and juvenile court to use the real-time tracking and reporting that he has in place to monitor folks.
And let me just jump in for 1 second, Jason. For people that don't know, and we've spoken to Matt Dennis before, and I've toured his facility, when somebody that is wearing one of his bracelets tampers with it, he notifies NOPD and he notifies the judge, does he not?
Absolutely. And look, if we reach out to him and we need information, he will get that information to us in record time. This is not a technology issue. This is a people issue. Mm-hmm. This is people not being willing to do the extra work, right? Look, my wife knows where I am every minute of the day because my cell phone's with me, right? I know where my kids are every day, every night because of a cell phone. The technology is good. The problem is juvenile court has chosen not to monitor individuals they are duty bound to supervise after conviction. So, I mean, Matt Dennis's work is solid. I think his system would work better at juvenile court than they have now. I'm not proposing that we get rid of a technology. I'm proposing that we suspend what they are doing at the juvenile jail, that the city suspend that until they get it right, or get a third party like Matt Dennis to run it in a way in which we, the DA's office, the NOPD, can all know when someone is out past curfew, when someone is not in the geographical perimeter set by the court or requested by the DA's office.
And let me say it this way, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. What the law is going to call for, and is it January 1st the law goes into effect?
January, correct.
Is what Matt Dennis and ASAP is doing now. So the juvenile court could do business with Matt Dennis now if they wanted to?
They could have done business with Matt Dennis last year.
Okay.
In fact, they should have. And look, I'm not.
No, neither am I endorsing him or anything else. We're just talking about.
This is not about a particular company, but this company holds itself to the highest standard, and I believe we should have municipal city standards. And if a company wants to do electronic monitoring within the city of New Orleans, they've got to live up to that high standard of real-time monitoring because it is possible. It is doable. And frankly, it shouldn't take state legislation for judges to want to know where a convicted violent criminal is when they have released them from custody.
I hate to cover old ground here, but I do want to give you a chance to respond to this text that comes in. Somebody texts in and says, and I'm going to read it verbatim here, Jason. Unbelievable to hear Jason Williams stating that the juvenile courts are the problem in New Orleans with juvenile crime. He refuses to prosecute juveniles properly to the point that the governor has moved most of the cases of the state attorney general office now then involved violent crime down there. Anyway, I don't know if it's anybody from here or not that texted that in, but I just want you to clear up why exactly it is that the attorney general got involved in this and what's going on with Troop NOLA and the prosecutions with your office, et cetera.
So first and foremost, that is absolutely incorrect. Violent crimes in juvenile court and adult court have not moved to the attorney general. That's inaccurate. I campaigned that I did not want to prosecute young people in adult court. I'll reverse that within my first year because of the level of violence that we were seeing after the pandemic. And we have transferred and prosecuted a number of young people in adult court because I thought that was what was necessary. And that's what justice deserved. We are getting convictions in juvenile court of juvenile offenders. This case itself amplifies what's happening. After we get, this person was convicted of I think 7 different counts, right? Mm-hmm. And after he was convicted of seven different counts, the judge decided to release him from custody as his sentence. So that is what's occurring. My prosecutors are working very, very hard to hold people accountable when there's evidence, whether it's adult court or juvenile court. Now, with regards to Attorney General getting involved, I'm thankful that she's involved. After I rang the alarm on this issue Monday, she's one of the first calls I got. We have been communicating nonstop about investigating what is going on in juvenile court. She agrees with me that the black box of secrecy that's happening over there is a disservice to victims and survivors and to the community. And I hope that her call to the Supreme Court to set up some new guardrails about what's happening over there is heeded. It's helpful. This is an all hands on deck scenario. And the LSP being here to augment the New Orleans Police Department to help us do that work, meaning having more people involved in arresting the folks that are committing crime and having more lawyers working on prosecuting those cases. That's important. I've been asking for it since I got elected. I asked John Bell Edwards to have the state police come down. We asked for more bodies in court. And he wasn't able to do it at the time because of financial constraints. A different governor with an R behind his name, I've got a D behind my name, heard that cry after we met, after he was elected, before he was sworn in. And in record time, he delivered on more law enforcement and more prosecutors in court to deal with more cases. It just makes sense.
So I'm looking at this Nunez, 15-year-old, found guilty on 7 counts aggravated assault as well as domestic battery against his own family and illegal possession of a handgun charge. So the police did the arrest. They got the reports done. They gave it to your office. You got the conviction. I'm just recapping for people here that don't understand the chronology of this and how it happened. You went to court, you got the conviction, and it all fell apart when the judge sent him home with an ankle monitor that was not being monitored. After he cut that monitor off, I guess apparently it came to Judge Candace Bates Anderson's attention. She put out a warrant for his arrest. Earlier, Jason, you were saying that everybody had their role to play, right? Well, I think Ann Kirkpatrick says that they have 4,000 outstanding juvenile warrants, and if that's the case, I don't know how they go about. Are you in communication, or is that even in your lane to talk with the police chief about who's out on the streets? Hey, you might want to go pick this one up because he's got a history of this or she's got a history of that. How does all of that work?
Hi, I'm Dalvet Quince. One way to help manage type 2 diabetes is to regularly exercise. My exercise program can
flavor. If you want
to make your get started on the app.
This afternoon, talking about this issue as well as
You can do this when you Angie that.
Everybody's got their own roles and responsibilities. I communicate with Ann on a regular basis. I'll be with her later on this afternoon, talking about this issue as well as a host of other issues, including gun laws in the French Quarter. There's one other piece I think I want to add to it. You did a really good job, Tommy, of synopsizing what happened in this case. Mm-hmm. There's one piece that's missing. This individual, JJIC, reported to the judge that he was not in compliance and he was brought to court before Ms. Thibodeau was murdered and after he was convicted and the judge released him. And he was sent back out onto the street, right? So there were a number of points of intervention in which I believe the court should have said, you know what, you're going to spend a little time in jail, right? And I want to be really clear. The idea that children should not be in jail when they commit crimes, that's hocus pocus. I mean, people got to realize, you got the far left saying one thing, you got the far right saying something else. People in the middle just want to be able to live safe lives. And when people commit crimes, sometimes they need to go to jail. And going to jail would have been a better outcome, not only, rest in peace, Ms. Thibodeau, but also for this young defendant whose life is over, frankly.
Yep. The other two, Jason, and I love what you're saying about the R and the D and the far left, far right, because Christy Thibodeau and her family, they don't care about any of that. And I'll even make the case that this Kevin Nunes, he's 15-year-old, he's a human being. His life, like you're saying, is basically over now. He's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. It would certainly appear that way. What about the warrant issue with triaging warrants, and is that strictly within the wheelhouse of NOPD?
There are a number of things. So, for example, when Lionel Reynolds, that was the other individual who was released to a step-down facility after paralyzing a young man after we convicted him, and he was sentenced to juvenile life, and the judge brought him back and sent him to a halfway house, and he escaped and went to Houston. That particular situation, it highlights the black box that's happening there. And it highlights a situation in which there can be intervention and reminds us all that children need discipline and accountability. And sometimes incarceration for a period of time is that discipline and accountability that can return that young person back into community. This idea that they should just go back home. Well, home sometimes is what's created the horrible activities and the horrible habits.
So how would it change legislatively? I know there was an attempt when it comes to transparency to change things in the last legislative session. Not everything was achieved. Ideally, what would you like to see to do away with this? Would the legislature have to do? I don't know if the council can do anything, city charter. What would have to change for this black box to go away or to be made better and the juvenile justice system in New Orleans and Orleans Parish improved?
So I understand that the premise behind protecting the privacy rights of a young person are based upon a delinquency finding where the child gets his life back together and it doesn't follow them for the rest of their life. I believe all that changes once a child has proven themselves to be a danger to the public, because the public has a right to protect themselves from dangerous people. And I believe that if a judge or a court want to change the sentence that would allow a dangerous person or person who was convicted of a violent crime to return to community, that should not be able to be done in secret. That should be done in open court with prosecutors present, with notice to victims. And I frankly believe that the press should be allowed to view if a sentence is going to be reduced in a violent crime, right? I think the Supreme Court needs to be involved. I believe the state legislature needs to be involved. I think when the juvenile system was created, I don't think the environment and atmosphere of violence that we're living in today was what was planned for in the current juvenile justice system.
It seems like you could do both. Couldn't the public be informed about violent offender X or number 358, however you want to identify him, without putting a name out there?
Exactly. This is not about necessarily putting someone's picture up on the news or name up on the news, but letting the impacted member of our community who was robbed, who was shot, who was hurt, know what is happening with this case. And that should not be allowed to happen behind closed doors.
And to just let the general public know that here you have a 15-year-old, you don't have to give his name, just what's going on in juvenile court. It would seem to me that was accused, had gun issues, been convicted of gun issues, domestic abuse on family. Now the judge is letting this 15-year-old, and you wouldn't have to identify him, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, and think about the text or the call that you just received, where they're saying that we are not prosecuting these cases in juvenile court. This amplifies a situation that my prosecutors are working very, very hard in juvenile court, getting convictions, but then once they get those convictions, nothing is happening in the court in terms of real accountability that includes jail time. And then to find out that someone's on an electronic monitor, but nobody is checking these reports. Nobody's making sure this kid is home before curfew. I mean, that's absurd. That is absurd. And if they're not willing to have a system that can have a standard of review, then those individuals that have proven themselves dangerous should remain in custody until they've served their sentence.
Do you have a sense that anything's going to change anytime soon, that this got the juvenile court's attention?
I don't know what is in the minds of the judges there. I would hope that a loss of life like this woman, a tour guide who loved this city, right? Loved it so much that she wants to share it with the world, with anybody who's coming in. The fact that her life was taken by an individual that should not have been out at 5 a.m., should not have been on the street. And there were numerous points in which somebody at juvenile court or the director of the juvenile jail facility who's running that electronic monitoring company could have intervened, had him snatched up. And so oftentimes we use the U.S. Marshals. When Lionel Reynolds escaped to Houston, in that particular scenario, I got on the phone with the U.S. Marshals Service, explained what was going on, and they got him back in custody within a couple of days, right? So there are a number of individuals that are willing to help, but they can't help if the judges aren't saying, hey, over here, I've got someone who's absconded from my supervision, right? And I don't think it's particularly fair to the police department to just send over 4,000 attachments without prioritizing which ones are dangerous, which ones we need dealt with quickly. We know we have woman power, manpower issues over there. And there's other folks that can help with getting folks who have absconded with warrants, whether it be the sheriff, whether it be the U.S. Marshal. And so, frankly, we need to be very creative about how we deal with that so that we don't create a new problem.
I know you have to go and you're busy, but a couple of quick questions. One, the 15-year-old Kevin Nunes, what he violated the first time, did he cut an ankle monitor off the first time, or was it something different?
The first time when he was brought back after he was sentenced, after he was convicted, he was tampering with the ankle monitor that time, and the director made the court aware. They did not make my office aware. They did not make the NOPD aware. And he was released back into community on yet another ankle monitor. And then he was out at 5 a.m. and took the life of Miss Thibodeau after that.
Real quick before we let you go, Lawrence Hecker is going to be in court today. What's the situation with that? Do you know?
In fact, I just got a text on it. I'm handling that case personally, and I'm headed over to court right now. They're about to call it, Tommy.
I'll let you go. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Jason Williams, District Attorney. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You bet. We'll take a break. We come back. We'll talk to Nick Mesa, Graduate Research Assistant with